Hi, welcome back to Arknights Academy. Today we're gonna learn about the most anticipated topic, and arguably one of the hardest, that is, damage calculation. Before starting, let me say this first. Learning damage calculation serves absolutely no purpose for general or casual playthrough. Is there a risk to learn them then? Not really. It is mainly only used for theory crafting, for challenge clear such as high risk, specific class clear, and many others. So, what is this video for then? Well, today I'll also be teaching on how to use them effectively, rather than just blindly using the math. With that out of the way, let's start. As everyone knows, when we deploy operator and or use their skill, they will automatically attack nearby enemies, and then bing bang bong, damage is done. What we're gonna look at is what happened at this bing bang bong process, and how the exact number are calculated in-game. In Arknights, damage are deterministic, meaning that all damage dealt under specific stats condition will always be the same without any external random variable affecting it, only affected by skill or talents RNG. This means that we can always simulate the exact scenario with little to no randomization, thus creating the birth of theorycraft. Thankfully, Arknights damage calculation only consists of basic arithmetic, which makes it easy to learn, and I will try my best to explain as simple as possible without missing out on key details. There are a lot of factors that determine how much damage can be dealt, so we are going to dissect the damage formula from its simplest form, based on what we learned from the first lesson of damage type. Here are the formula for the 3 damage types. Now, by looking at their similarity, we can actually simplify these 3 to just one formula, that is, damage equals attack minus or times damage reduction. Damage reduction being defense or resistance. This formula actually works for a mere auto-attack calculation. However, when skills and talents are taken into account, the damage calculation gets more complicated than this. That is due to the addition of damage amplifier, aka damage scale. Damage scales act as a final multiplier for damage. Under normal circumstances, this is usually just 1, but some skills or talent, even module, can increase this value. Ways to tell what kind of skill has this attribute is that they say along the line of increasing or reduce damage taken or dealt by X percentage. When multiple damage scale exists, they stack multiplicatively, meaning that if there exists more than 1, we will be multiplying both of them together to get the effective result. Examples are Suzuran skill tree with her talent and Zarya skill tree. When combined, both result in an effectively 226% damage scale for Arts damage, which essentially more than doubles our original damage, making Arts Burst Squad extremely potent due to its high ceiling. This is also why Suzuran is highly sought after, especially for high-risk UC, due to the DPS boost she provides. Next up, we will dissect attack. Attack refers to the effective attack stats an operator have. Key point effective, as it does not necessarily mean the operator attack stats, as can be seen from the operator info when we click on them. Why is that? Because the existence of attack scale. Attack scale is pretty much the same as damage scale, just that it multiplies the operator attack stats instead. This multiplier can only benefit self. You can easily tell by reading their skills and talent. Attack scale are those that does not have the plus symbol. Basically, anything that says deal X% of damage or increase attack to X%. It is possible to have more than one attack scale, usually coming from both skills and talent. And just like damage scale, they do stack multiplicatively. An example is Swar's skill 1, as she has 2 attack scale, coming from her talent and her skill, resulting in an effectively 352% attack scale, which almost quadruple her attack. Another thing that determines attack is the attack stats. This is the number shown on operator info when we click on them. This value is the one that gets affected by buffs and debuffs, either from self, other operators, enemies, or stage modifier. Using this formula, base attack refers to the original operator stat shown on operator page. Stage modifier refers to risk or support text that comes from CC or CM condition. This stack multiplicatively. As can be seen from the formula, stage modifier affects the base attack stat. which is why attack down risks in CC have always been the hardest to deal with. Next up is percentage attack buff. This refers to any skill or talent that says attack plus X%. This often gets confused with attack skill from before. The easiest way to tell the difference is that percent attack buff has plus symbol on it. This stacks additively, meaning that we just need to add up all the existing percentage attack buff. Example is Silvera's skill tree, which gives him plus 200% attack, and his talent, which gives another 12% attack, resulting in a total of 212% attack buff. We combine those three first before adding the fourth factor, that is, final attack buff. This usually comes from Inspire effect, such as Sora's skill 2 and Skadi's skill 2 or 3. As final attack buff comes as a percentage of the provider stats. It's possible to buff their stats, which in turn also increase the amount of final buff they give. This is particularly useful with Skadi's skill tree, as shown in multiple higher CC clear, as she double acts as both buffer and a damage dealer from her true damage. Lastly is attack debuff. This is just a final multiplier that affects attack stats as a whole. This is why attack debuff are extremely potent, such as Samurai Doll, as it can help our operator to survive longer, or vice versa, reduce our DPS by a significant margin. Now, our full formula is this. The only thing that is left to talk is damage reduction, which is only relevant for physical and earth damage, in the form of defense and resistance. Both of them actually share the same formula, that is, if you pay attention, this formula is actually very similar to attack formula from before, with a few twists, that is, the addition of flat modifier that gets added towards the base stat, example being Shining Talent that increases defense. It should not be confused with final modifier coming from Inspire. This is because they are indeed both the same. Both attack stats and damage reduction are essentially what we call stats calculation. Just like attack calculation, percentage debuff are also as potent, which is why debuffers are very important in maximizing damage. Example being Ifrit, as her talent on top of her skill tree can reduce more than half of enemies' resistance. Due to its similarity, we can actually simplify the whole stats calculation to just of calculating the base stats affected by stage modifier, affected by flat modifier for damage reduction, and then affected by percentage buff, and then affected by final buff coming from Inspire, and then lastly percentage debuff, reducing the amount of things we need to remember. However, there's actually an extra mechanics that affects damage reduction indirectly. It, however, is not a buff nor a debuff, that is, ignore mechanics. This is essentially the attack scale equivalent for damage reduction, that is, damage reduction minus or times the ignore value. As you can see, ignore is calculated last in the damage reduction. This bit is important paired with the fact that for earth damage, resistance has a cap of 100, causing an extremely balanced interaction to exist with Sword talent of ignore 20 resistance. This means that she is guaranteed to at least deal 20% of her attack at minimum, which is one of the reasons why she is extremely broken. At last, we get the full formula, like this. That's pretty long. There's no way I can remember. And yes, you will be right. So we can actually just shorten it down and divide it into two parts. First being damage calculation, and the second is stats calculation, with the order as said before. Pretty simple, right? But how do we use them exactly? Obviously, you can use it to just calculate how much damage per hit or damage per second that an operator does. But that's too basic and boring. They are used further than that. Its best usage is to calculate how much damage we need to kill something. After all, that's the purpose for operator dealing damage, right? So, what else is the best way other than to do something say high risk clear? We'll use Spectrum as it is the latest CC in EN server. Have you ever wondered how did people even thought to use Exo Buff Squad for risk 31? If you ever watch their clear, you can clearly see how tight Exo barely kills the corp attacks. It all comes from the map itself, so let's do the calculation for that. We'll assume every operator is in max potential. At Race 31 Corrupted Knight has 25,000 HP and with 70% and 90% HP increase stack. This stack stacks multiplicatively, resulting in 80,750 HP with a defense of 1200. We will be having Exu buffed by Skadi skill tree, who is also buffed by Warfarin skill tree. Meanwhile, we'll have Shamir and Elysium debuff Corrupted Knight's defense. All these buffers and debuffers are needed due to the attack down race 3, that is minus 45 attack. First of all, let's work from the base. Exu is buffed by Skadi, so we need to know how much Skadi buff gives. Skadi at max buff has 445 attack down race reduces her attack by 45%. She is buffed by Warfarin skill 2, that is 90% attack buff, and another 9% attack buff coming from her talent. And lastly, her skill tree has a 110% modifier, which gives in a total of 535.76. Now we can calculate Exu CI attack. Exu at max spot has 657 attacks, with attack down race of minus 45%. She has 8% attack buff coming from her talent, and then we add 535.76 attack stats coming from Skadi. And lastly, 110% attack skill coming from her skill tree. Now, she deals a whopping 1018.6 damage per hit before reduction. Next, we will be calculating the defense of Corrupted Knights. We will be debuffing his defense using Shamanado and Elysium skill tree, which is each 50% and 35%. Calculating it, we will get 390 defense. Since there is no damage amps happening, we can just put the damage skill as 1 and we get final damage per hit, that is 628.62 damage per hit. To get the total damage, we will have to calculate how many times Exu attacks during her skill tree with the help of Elysium talent. I did a video on how to calculate attack interval, so you can go watch that if you want to learn more. Shortly, we get 0.78 divided by 1.38, and then coding for frame rounding, she attacks every 17 frames. And since skill duration is 15 seconds, multiplying it by 30 frames per second and then dividing by 17, we get a total attack which is 26 attacks, each dealing 5 hits, resulting in 130 total hits. Combining all of those, we can calculate the total damage that Exu deals, that is 130 times 628.62. Is roughly 81,720 damage, which is just barely enough to kill the Corrupted Knight's 80,000 HP. This is without considering Scalter's skill tree damage, which can help reducing the pot requirement and how much attacks Exu need to hit within her skill duration. Pretty cool, right? This goes to show of how in-depth Arknights can go, which is pure theorycraft, and hopefully you can use this to further enhance your gameplay.